Hey guys, this is Sam. Thanks for listening to the JRP podcast. If you want to support this podcast, if you enjoy listening, check out our Patreon, $7 a month. There's a link down below in the Spotify or the YouTube description, or you can find the link on our Instagram at JamRoomCast. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to beautiful Columbia, South Carolina. This is the JRP podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Illia.
We're having a laugh. We made a really funny joke right before we started that we're not going to tell you about.
That's just for us.
We're here with our friend Paul.
Hello.
Man.
We're so professional. We are really, really good at what we
It's
do.
a very legitimate podcast. Yes. Very legitimate operation here at the
We're
Jam Room.
all, very serious professionals.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yes, absolutely.
Paul, would you like to just kind of give us a backstory to your career in music and theater and horns and all that kind of stuff?
So like start like way back?
Way back.
Okay.
Whole thing.
So when I was a wee child, I was singing all the time. So my mom was like, hey, let's use this for something. So she put me in like the church choir, the kids' church choir. And I have pretty consistently sung in choirs at some level my entire life. When I was in second grade, I started taking piano lessons from Mr. Carruthers. Shout out Mr. Carruthers in Charleston, South Carolina.
He's going to listen to this.
Oh,
he's going to watch this podcast.
I am going to make sure he listens to this. He was my music teacher at school and started giving me piano lessons. And I truly do credit him for my passion for music and specifically music education. And then took piano lessons for years and years and years. Middle school, at the small private school I was at, did not have a band program, but I want to say 8th grade year, they started a band program, and I was in that first group. Started to learn how to play the trumpet, and moved from, over the course of like middle and high school, moved from trumpet to trombone to the baritone / euphonium, and yeah, then we get to my senior year of high school, and it's time to make a decision as to what I'm doing with the rest of my life. And I, as a senior in high school, committed to being a high school band director, which I didn't do, but like that's where I thought my trajectory was going. Went to USC as a euphonium major with an emphasis in music education or whatever. And then sophomore year, I switched over to vocal studies. Kind of full circle. Yeah. Took the journey through. I learned guitar at some point through there.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's easy. It takes like a month or two. So.
But yeah, so I switched over to voice, and then my sophomore year of college, I joined Off Broadway at USC, which is a little like student-run theater group, and kind of just fell in love with that as an art form and completely changed the direction of my life from there. Immediately auditioned for Columbia Children's Theater, where I currently work full-time. So awesome. that small decisions along the way shape the life that I am now living.
That's awesome.
Very cool. That is really cool to me. Like, that really sticks out that you didn't do theater until college. Yeah. And if you don't know Paul, that's like your whole life now. That is what you do.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting like pivot that you just find this thing and you're like, wow, and it has stuck with you thus far.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it will not continue to stick.
We'll see.
That's funny.
And then tell us how, like, so you kind of always had this idea that you would be an educator then. Yeah? Okay. Earlier you and I had spoken and you mentioned kind of this thing that happened, I think your junior year of college.
Yeah. No, senior year of high school. My senior year of high school, I was a big old band nerd and wasn't quite sure where I was going at that point and what I was doing. But my band director asked me to tutor one of the younger students on the tuba. And through that experience and through sharing like that just kind of educational experience and seeing him start to thrive really really energized me and gave me some sense of like purpose that I hadn't really felt before, which is why I kind of pursued that education route.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Sorry, yeah, I had heard that as college, but high school.
No, high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
That's really
What was
beautiful.
the age difference there? Like how much younger was the student than you?
I want to say he was a freshman.
Okay, so 2 years.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
how about
Wow.
that?
Well, then, so you've continued being an educator now. You've taught like different shows. Tell us a little bit about your educational journey.
Yeah, so straight out of college, I took a residency at Brockman Elementary Montessori School through Columbia Children's Theater, where I taught drama for the kids there. Then pretty soon after, I started teaching music, just general music at Brennan Elementary in Richland 1. And then I was there for about 7 years. And then the director of education position at Columbia Children's Theater opened up. Like this whole time, I'm still doing shows and directing and music directing. But now that is my full-time job. So,
Nice.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Well, so music directing, that's something I want to talk to you a little bit about because we've all had a collective experience doing music.
What's up, Sam?
Which is a really, really fun experience that the three of us shared.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I just realized I don't think I've ever been in a room with someone that like in a potential conversation where there's someone else who can back me up on electric drums. On like the use of electric drums.
Oh, I don't
know. You can't see Jason right now, but he's giving a thumbs down behind the camera. Zach, can we get a reaction on electric drum kits? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Oh, thumbs up. Wow. Okay.
Look at that. We have
That's very
three supporters
surprising.
in total. So
I'm just saying, if the sound mixing is going to be an issue, why make it harder on everyone, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
if the band's going to be on the stage.
I think we should spend this entire podcast arguing about the school of
Yeah, let me
production.
alienate the entire
Yeah,
music community
sure.
of Columbia.
That's funny.
Anyway, that was a fun collective experience that the three of us had that we really don't need to dive into. But you have both been a part of bands for productions as well as directed bands.
Yeah.
What's kind of like, I feel like this might be a silly question. What's kind of like the difference in expectation? Like when you're a band member versus when you're a band director, how do you approach those situations?
Yeah, so I'm going to start as a member. A couple years back at Workshop Theater, I was in the band for The Wedding Singer. And the expectations were very different, especially going from primarily as an actor into the band setting, because as an actor, you're rehearsing with this group for, 2-3 months up to the show. We met, I think, the weekend before the show all together. Like I had my score and the expectation was just, you learn your stuff, we get together and you better have it ready to a certain level.
Yeah.
Which was a very new experience. Because again, like I'm just now meeting all these people and now I am, having to perform at the level of Greg Apple on drums. And yeah. So, it was a little very humbling, right? Like I don't consider piano my primary instrument at all. I was on keys 2 and 3. I had 2 scores and, I was told, figure it out.
Did you have like 2 different keyboards?
Nope.
Man.
Nope, I just had the one keyboard, and I would just pick and choose which parts needed to be filled throughout
That's
the
tough.
show.
Fair, yeah.
I've experienced.
Yeah.
I get that.
But yeah, so the expectation there was hard, but it was also like one of the coolest experiences, I would say, as a theater performer, was being on that side of it and being held to just such a very different expectation. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer that question, at least from that part?
Yeah, and then being a director of music in a show, like what's that experience like?
So as a music director for shows, we do at CCT, I'll speak to the band in a second, but like at CCT, we are primarily using tracks just because, myriad of reasons. I'm not going to get into the philosophy of using canned music. But we do primarily use tracks for our shows there. So my job as music director there is mainly teaching, the kids or adults, whoever is in the show, their parts, assigning any like unspecified solos, things like that, figuring out what works, having a hand in casting, just like this group, might not actually sound that great together. Let's not do that. Things like that. And then, as we get closer to the actual performance, my job shifts from like teaching to just kind of correcting and tweaking and all of that. I am also very often the one who is in the booth, like running the tracks.
Okay.
So just pressing go on tracks because I will be the most familiar with where those musics need to happen, and it frees up a techie to do other things.
Sure.
When I'm working with a band, so I've actually only worked with a band once, but as the music director, I did, try to hold my band to that standard where, you have the music, I need y'all to go rehearse. And then when we meet together, I do need it at a certain level.
Sure.
I found myself, and this is where the flexibility that I've learned throughout the years comes into play, where if something's not working, the flexibility to be like, all right, let's adjust this. You're not quite getting this part. We can simplify, play this instead, things like that as we're getting closer to the show. And it has to happen whether or not they are, at 100. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Excuse me. While you were saying that, it was just making me think of like, the logistics of working with a live band versus working with tracks. When you're working with tracks, if you have, let's say like some sort of like lines or a monologue or something like while music is happening, you're like, okay, I know I have exactly. And like, there's this part of you that's like counting in the back of your head while you're speaking.
Yep.
And you're like, I'm hearing the music, do this thing. I got to get going. Versus a band, you can vamp.
Well, yeah,
You can
right. But I mean, like the downside of that is, and like people make jokes about this with canned music all the time, where you'll have somebody, especially like younger performers, who will rush through a monologue, and then you're there stuck for like 4 more measures before they have to start singing again. But that, I have learned some tricks to make that not happen. As far as like how we run tracks, we use QLab on our Mac, and there are ways to just like skip forward and like, put in these fail safes, so that my job is to always make the kids sound as good as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they're rushing through a monologue and there's 4 measures left, I've done something wrong. So I either need to like work with them to slow it down or find out how we can make it work for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the experience kind of like working with especially younger voices? I know we've both done some of that like together, separately, etc.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool thing to work with like really young performers and see them like, I don't know, start to like come into their own and become a performer. But what's your approach to working with like, you have like a young cast, like, especially if you see the potential there and you're like, how do you get them to that place where you think they can go? You know?
It is really tricky because you only have so many minutes of audition time to make a choice that's going to affect your next 2 months, right? But there have been times where something about a voice, like, even if the audition is not necessarily great, like, as a musician, I'm like, no, though, there's something here, right? I'm gonna fight for this person to get a role that I can like a little bit.
Yeah.
This is an audio art form.
There's
motion,
cameras,
motion hands up, as if to lift them.
If you're only
I don't
listening.
function in the audio format. So. But yeah, so working with young voices, something that I have found is young voices so much more than older voices. And when I say young voices, I'm talking like elementary, right? Are so much more willing to try stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're like, hey, do it this way. Hey, you're switching into your head, but I know you have more chest in you. Like let's work our way up there so we can strengthen this a little bit more. They are so much more willing to try that
Yeah.
than a high schooler God forbid, a middle schooler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they will take that journey with you. So the earlier you can get them to trust you on that journey, you are then going to have that trust as they are then in middle school and high school, which is why, like at CCT, I love it because I'm working with kids now that I taught as like second graders.
Wow.
Like as
crazy.
high schoolers. So it's really freaking cool.
That is really
I
cool.
love that part of my job.
That's
Yes.
really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And yeah, when you're an older singer, you have all this like insecurity that you just don't have when you're that little. But yeah, the middle schoolers especially, they are. That's the peak of I am insecure about what's going to come out of my voice, especially.
God bless middle school teachers at any level.
That's a tough time in your life, man. That's, especially to be singing and doing theater and stuff. That's rough.
Yeah, I think every now and then about my middle school teachers, and I'm just like, man, you really. Thank you. That's the one thing I can say is thank you. Also, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well then, and what's your, on the flip side of that, like what's the experience with like adult casts or even just kind of your high school to adult casts?
So my preferred grade level, elementary students, I love you. I love working with high schoolers, right? There is something so unique about working with high schoolers who function at a certain level, like not even like, they are good singers, but just like they have that they function at a level that is not quite adult. So they don't have the baggage yet, but they have but they have the drive, right? If you are going out and doing shows as a high schooler at your community theater or, CCT, things like that, like you're there for a reason. And that vibe is so fun to work with. And then adults, I'm mainly working with smaller casts, which I greatly appreciate. CCT, we are generally doing smaller shows, like for children. So, my cast of like 4, 5, 6. And we get to be a little more picky with that. Like once you're an adult, screw the education part of it, right? Like I'm casting you because you're good.
So describe like the average adult that's doing theater. Like is it people that are like doing it professionally, or are they like hobbyists, or is it people that are like trying out a new thing, or like what's that demographic like?
So theater, adults doing theater globally, I'll speak to a little bit. There are absolutely hobbyists, right? Like who they are finding a new art form later in life, or maybe they, are revisiting something that they were like, oh, I was in Anything Goes in high school. Now Town's doing Anything Goes this coming season. Maybe I want to go revisit that show. Sure. Things like that. And those people are really fun to work with, right? Like not even to speak to like skill or anything, because that's going to vary regardless, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But those people are really fun to work with just because they are there because they are just interested in it. Like they get done with their 9 to 5 and then, I'm in something rotten right now at Town. And so many of those people are working just regular jobs.
You're good.
Regular jobs, and then coming and doing theater in the evenings. And it's really cool to have people from all walks of life just kind of converge on a central location to make art together. Like that's special to me.
It is.
At CCT, we are, a professional theater. We are paying our actors. So there is a certain expectation. And those people are sometimes coming from other walks of life, right? Like, but very often it's the people who are there to make theater and like are very serious about it, for better or worse. Sure. But yeah, so it's different vibes. Yeah, but that's kind of the cool thing about doing theater as an adult in general. Is just tapping into those different vibes.
Definitely.
The first time I got back to theater, like on stage, was at CCT. And I was in a Freckle Face Strawberry.
That was a high five.
That was a high five.
That was a clap.
If you're only listening.
So sorry.
But I was in Freckle Face Strawberry.
Yes, you were.
And I still think so fondly about that. Like that was when you're in a show as an adult, like to perform for children, that is such a cool experience. Like, I don't feel like that's just not, I would say, the typical theater experience. Because like when you're in high school or middle school, you're putting on a performance for like your friends and for like your family. And like, I can speak to my mother that she wouldn't just be like, yeah, that was great. She'd be like, yeah, you were a little breathy in this section. She's been driving me to my voice lessons my entire life.
And you better be making it worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tina is watching. She is eyes open, ears open. She is paying attention. But then when you're performing theater as an adult, I am playing a 7-year-old and we're all playing 7-year-olds and we're performing in front of 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
That is such a cool experience.
Yeah.
I think that pushed me in ways I had never been pushed before as a performer.
Yeah.
Because even just like, I don't know, I feel like the improv of that group specifically, that was also a very small cast. It was like, how many people were in that cast? Did you work on that show?
I music directed that show.
That's right. Okay. I was like, I couldn't remember if it was you or Julia.
Yeah.
But again, very small cast. The way we all had to like kind of play off of each other and everything. Yeah. Anyway, I could just go off about that experience forever.
One of my favorite stories is we had a high schooler who she was playing Junie B. Jones in Junie B. Jones the musical. And I guess like her school had come to see it or whatever. Later in the school year, her high school troupe went and did their competition piece at that elementary school, and she tells the story of this kid going like, Junie B. Jones goes to Dreer? And just being so shocked. But yeah, kids
it's pretty funny.
Are some of my favorite audiences, and the most work you will ever put into a show.
Yes. We had one number in Freckleface that like we had to like look for Freckleface, and the cast would ask the audience like, oh, have you seen her? And the tracks are going, we cannot hear them. Nope. The children are screaming, and it's like, well, we're all counting and we're just hoping for the best that like we're gonna get to the next section on time. Yep. It's like you could not hear anything. I wanted to ask you about some of your like favorite shows that you've worked on. Firstly, actually, let me ask. Okay. What was the first show you were in off Broadway? What was your first CCT show? And then what was your first directed show?
Okay. The first, like the thing about off Broadway is they don't, because it's student run and student funded, they don't do shows. Like every semester is not a show. So, or at least it was back some years ago, when I was in college.
Undisclosed amount of years.
But so like the semester that I did off Broadway, we just did like a review, so just a collection of songs from disparate shows. And I sang, what were some of the just random songs I sang? I did 96,000 from In the Heights. We did the opening song from a Goofy movie. Whatever the stupid song is from Grease. We go together like.
I was gonna say which one. That was
which one. Truly, we go together like it's disparate, and then college students get together and write a script loosely connecting all of these songs. I still have that script in my drive. I will not delete it because it's so fun to read and go back to. So that was my off Broadway show. Audition for CCT, and the next, like the very first show the next season was Alexander and the Terrible Horrible
You got it.
Wait, no, I lost it. Alexander and the Terrible Horrible No Good Very Bad Day. I didn't say it fast enough.
There's a pace.
Yeah. Which was a musical based on the children's book, and I was cast in Alexander, my first role at CCT 13 years ago. The next season, I wanted to go out and do shows elsewhere. So I auditioned for Songs for a New World at Workshop Theater, which is a wonderful song cycle by Jason Robert Brown. And then a few years later, after having directed a couple of like camp showcases and things like that.
Those were air quotations if you're only listening.
Dang it. Quote unquote.
Most people watch. Like we get like 100 YouTube plays and like 12 Spotify plays. So we're good for the most part. But the 12 of you that listen on Spotify, you're welcome.
There were air quotations.
But yeah, so after having directed a couple of like very small things, Jerry asked me if I wanted to direct the 7th through 12th graders in a production of Guys and Dolls Jr., which was my very first direction. My very first directing gig was Guys and Dolls Jr., and then it's all been downhill from there.
Wow.
Sweeney Todd who? No.
Oh my gosh.
Grief. So I wanted to see, okay, you said when you were tutoring tuba in high school, that's when you fell in love with teaching. So I have two questions. First of all, what is it that made you fall in love with it? Like if you can just like pinpoint like why you fell in love with it, and then also like what advice would you give someone that, like, there's a lot of musicians in town, a lot of guitarists, drummers, whatever, that also want to get into private teaching, like private lessons. What advice would you give to somebody that's like trying to figure out whether they want to go further into the private teaching path and like figure out if they are actually like they have the education like bug or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. When I was tutoring, I was doing it mostly just to get out of having to go to my study hall. I literally started it as a task. Like, this is a thing that I am doing so that I don't have to do a different thing. But as I was working with him and noticed that he started getting better, like through something that I was doing, I can't, it's hard to pinpoint, right?
Yeah.
But there is just something about sharing your skills and your knowledge with someone else that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
He was going off. I didn't say this part. The whole reason I was tutoring him is he was about to move and he was auditioning to get into the arts high school where he was moving to. And I found out, I had already committed to being a teacher and all that, but I found out that he had gotten in. Man. And
wow,
like,
that's cool.
Yeah. So again, it's really hard to pinpoint.
Sure. Yeah.
It was definitely more of a gradual thing.
Definitely.
But having that connection with another person who you are in more of like a mentor relationship with is very special. Be it peer, or younger, teacher, student, whatever, but having that connection where you are taking something that and you're leaving it with them. Yeah. Is, I don't know.
That's awesome.
It's a little esoteric, but that's how I feel about everything I do education wise. Is I'm leaving pieces of me all over Columbia.
Definitely. So you've done the one-to-one teaching or tutoring, like in different contexts. Yeah. How, like, obviously, like in musical capacity, how would you compare that one-to-one musical teaching to 1 to 30, 40 kids? Like teaching music, teaching technique, teaching like vocal stuff. I pedagogically. Can you explain that word?
I know what it is. But pedagogically, just in reference to how teaching.
Sure.
It is a very different skill set working with like one-on-one private voice lessons versus I've got 30 kids and we have to sing Be Our Guest in 5 weeks.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know why Be Our Guest. I didn't music direct Beauty and the Beast. That's just popped to my head. But so like if I'm working one-on-one, you have the gift of time, and not just time as in like, we have 60 minutes, but time that I'm dedicating to this one person, which is special. When I am working with a large group of people, you are kind of robbed of that one-on-one instruction. Yeah. Because if you ever decide to focus on that, then you're losing 39 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have to switch your brain into thinking more about how does this work as a group, right? Is the group suffering because your tone is slightly off?
Sure.
No, we're moving on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So it's, you know, I have worked with music directors who do nitpick. And I think that they have their process and I respect them for it. I am all about if the group is moving forward, then we're going to keep moving forward. Right. And just if that is pedagogically wrong, sorry. But that's always how I've had to think about it, just because you are trying to move a group.
Yeah.
And I also have been blessed in our larger cast with having kids who I can tap to be like, hey, go stand over here. Like this group needs a little extra help. Go sing with them. You know, making sure that when I do, if any of my high schoolers are watching this, you're going to get a peek behind the curtain here. When I do voice part breakdowns, making sure that I spread out my good singers. Sure. And that they're not all just like, oh no, we all sing soprano. Like, first off, no. Second off, I need to make sure I've got some singers in alto and some singers in soprano and some singers down in my baritone and things like that. So just, you know, putting in those kind of guide rails to help the group move. Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I would have never thought about the whole like spreading out the good, you know, singers in different groups. Yeah, sure. That's interesting. Yeah.
The good ones, the strong ones, like
the strong ones. The strong ones.
The more experienced ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes even just the louder ones. Like I know you're going to lift up the rest of the section because you're louder than all of them. That was never me.
Yeah. That's funny. So what advice, so obviously there's, you know, all kinds of high schoolers out there that are like super like into theater, like super into the art form, and they want to do it in some career capacity. What advice would you give them to like find their journey towards working in the theater world as a like full-time professional? Yeah. The very first bit of advice, I'm going to add camera for this. The very first bit of advice is learn tech skills. Sorry, real quick. If you're only listening, he's looking at the camera. I said I was looking at the camera. Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. I interrupted you for nothing. I'm sorry. I need the listeners to know that I care about y'all. And I'm trying. The first bit of advice, and I've said this to high schoolers, like to their faces, like learn tech skills, right? You are going to be so much more marketable if you are an actor Sure. Right? Like if you have, you know, set experience, then you are going to be attractive to, you know, even professional houses because you can come in and act and build set and I know how to light design and, you know, even teaching experience because a lot of these, you know, programs will have an education wing and you could be a part of that while also still performing and still doing all of that. So that's always my biggest piece of advice is like learn other skills. Be able to do more, right? Be it, you know, sound, light, set, costuming, things like that. And then my other piece of advice is there is literally no shame in not doing it professionally. Yeah. You will always have the opportunity to be in shows at the community level. And if you have the performance bug, keep doing it, right? Even if you don't get into freaking Carnegie Mellon, like just keep doing theater, right? Yeah. Keep making art. Just because you're not doing it professionally doesn't mean you're not doing it. Yeah. So definitely.
Yeah.
And I'll just go see shows, support the arts, right? Like when I was a music teacher, I always told my leaving fifth graders, I was like, I know statistically most of you aren't going to be professional musicians. Like I just straight up tell them, like, I know that. However, when you are in high school and your friend has a chorus concert, go support them. When you are in college and your friend has a show, go see their show. When you're an adult and your buddy's in a band, go see their band. So just do
that. Do that as much as you can, please.
Like, keep supporting the arts regardless of what you are doing in the arts.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
That's something we hear a lot from all different musicians and everything is A, diversifying, and B, just, supporting each other. These things don't exist unless, like, we have the support of, just kind of the community.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I did want to dive real quick into some of your, like, favorite shows that you've worked on. Because you've also probably have worked on things that a lot of people have never heard of. There's shows I will hear that you guys are doing all the time. I'm like, I've never heard of that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So glad y'all are doing it.
Okay.
So tell me about it.
Okay. My favorite show that I have been in. I'm gonna do a children's show, right? Because that's my bread and butter. My favorite show that I have been in is probably Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus.
That looked so fun.
I played the pigeon. I puppeteered for an hour. Scene puppeteer. I had blue hair.
I was gonna say, didn't you dye your hair for that?
I dyed my hair blue. But yeah, that was probably one of the funnest shows that I like. One of my favorite shows that I've been a part of. Second only to another Mo Willems project. Mo Willems is a children's author. Mo Willems project, which is Naked Mole Rat Gets Dressed, which was shut down in 2020.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And we had some Zoom rehearsals, and then we were like, guys, I don't think we can do this.
And then it never happened.
Yeah.
But that was going to be a killer show. But we are bringing Naked Mole Rat back for this coming season. Come see that. I have opted not to be in it because I have asked to direct it.
Wow.
Wow.
Trying to think. My favorite show I've directed. I mean, it's got to be Urinetown or Sweeney Todd. I directed. Yeah, no, it's Urinetown. It's Urinetown. I honestly, I peaked as a director in Urinetown.
Can you spell that?
Urine.
Oh, that's actually okay.
No, it's urine. It is urine.
Am I mishearing you?
No, you are not. It is Urinetown.
It's funny you keep mentioning these shows, and like big spoiler, I'm not super educated on the theater world.
Yeah.
But it's like a huge toss up on whether there's like a literal version of that thing in the title. Like, is there an actual pigeon? Is there an actual naked mole rat? Is there urine somehow? Or water dyed yellow?
Yes to all three.
Really?
Yeah, so Urinetown is a show about essentially a corporation controls the toilets and you have to pay them. It's this like big Brechtian anti-capitalist like...
That's intense. For Urinetown, that's intense.
For a show called Urine...
Okay.
No, it's so funny because it's so serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing like Fiddler on the Roof in high school, and I was like, "Where's the freaking Fiddler on the Roof, man?" Stupid joke.
There is a naked mole rat and there is a pigeon. Also,
Yeah.
those are present.
But the naked mole rat does get dressed, as the title implies.
That's good. Probably. I don't know anything about it, but
it's not actually. It's actually not good. The whole colony hates him because he gets dressed.
Oh man.
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh, it's bringing back memories.
Yeah. He puts on a hat and everyone's like, ugh, you're ugly now.
Man. Sounds like
the opposite effect of like she takes off her glasses and now she's hot. Oh my gosh.
Sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. I don't know.
Well, to wrap up,
Okay.
we just want to ask you about some of your favorite local spots.
Yeah.
For here in beautiful Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
That's my new favorite intro. I really love
Beautiful
that
Columbia, South
part of it. Okay, if you were gonna go get a coffee, where are you going?
Curiosity.
Beautiful. Oh, I love a Sunny Vanilli. I'm so sorry. I just had to mention the Sunny Vanilli. It's very special to me.
Curiosity or Curiosity or Drip.
We always get Drip.
Yes.
It's like the number one.
Drip is just so convenient.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Like being right there in 5 Point, and it's good.
There's not a better.
Go for it.
There's not a better pour over in Columbia. I'm sorry, Loveland. I love you. I love you, Loveland. Y'all are my. I worked there for a long time.
You don't work there anymore.
Drip coffee, though. I mean, it's the best.
Yeah. Will Sam and Illia get Drip after this?
Probably. High likelihood.
What about a meal? Where's your favorite place to go? Let's say like lunch. I feel like lunch is a more specific meal.
If I'm getting lunch, I'm going to East Bay Deli and getting a Reuben. Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What about dinner?
If I'm getting dinner,
What Where are you taking the lady? Where are you taking the family?
Am I taking Bobby or am I taking Bobby Ezra Joe?
Where are you taking Bobby Ezra Joe? Where are you taking just Bobby?
Okay. If I'm taking Bobby Ezra Joe, if I'm being so for real, I'm leaving them at home and I'm driving through somewhere.
The most convenient way to do it. Perfect.
But we do like going to Original Pancake House up there in Forest Acres. And then if I'm just taking Bobby somewhere, I'm gonna convince her to go somewhere like different, somewhere unique. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was gonna say Black Rooster, but they changed. They're not French anymore. Now they're like Italian or something.
Oh no.
I don't know. We don't eat out a lot. I got 2 kids. We stay home.
Makes sense.
We leave the public out of it.
Yeah. What was the place we went to? We always go to Cantina, so we have to challenge ourselves.
Okay, yeah.
That's like the one place we go. But it was it the Dragon Room?
Oh, yeah.
Where, if you haven't been there,
been to the Dragon Room.
You should try the Dragon Room.
Okay, I've
highly recommend.
For good things.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What about drinks? Where are you going? If you
drink, if you partake. Yeah.
If I am getting a drink,
That's
truly depends on who I'm with. What?
I was going to say that's not at Dungeons and Dragons night.
Okay. Well, no. Okay. Okay. If I am grabbing beer and taking it to our Dungeons and Dragons session, I'm stopping at Wico.
Absolutely.
I literally that is what I do every other week. I'll stop because the office in Don's house, Wico's between it. Grab some beers, go to D&D. But if I'm like going out for a drink, still maybe Wico. If I'm with Julian, I'm going to CJ's.
Of course.
Or
there's not another option.
This past weekend, I went to Bang Back.
It's a good spot.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We've been hanging out there a little bit more lately. It's a good spot.
Yeah.
Well,
beautiful. Amazing.
Paul, what do you have to promote for yourself, for your organization?
So organizationally, we have here at Columbia Children's Theater, we have a big old slate of summer camps. That's my next big project as director of ed, and then just a bunch of shows coming up next season. Shows your kids have probably heard of. So we got Pete the Cat, we've got Frog and Toad, we've got Naked Mole Rat Gets Dressed. Like I said, we're bringing that back, and then our 3rd year of A Christmas Carol, Alan Menken's big musical that I direct.
Nice.
And for the 3rd year now.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
thank you so much for being here,
yes,
Paul.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. Thank you to Jason behind the camera, JB Creative Studio. Check them out. Awesome video work.
Thank you, Jason.
AV, all that stuff. Thank you, Zach, producing the podcast, audio-wise, back there.
Just destroy his eardrums while we celebrate him.
We're filming this at the Jam Room Studio on Rosewood. Super great freaking space to track some music, live drums. It's a callback.
If you were just listening,
no electronic drum kit here. I'm sorry, that was a stupid joke. Also, all kinds of cool amps right behind me here. Beautiful space. They got a dedicated mastering studio, only one in town. And all kinds of great producers like Zach and Jay and Phil, who's here right before us. So we appreciate them. Thank you to Chris Reed, our patron. If you want to join our Patreon, it's $7 a month, less than a cup of coffee, and it goes a long way to help support this, what we do, or sponsor us if you're into that. We're Sam and Illia. Check us out online at Sam and Illia. That's ILLIA. We play bars, events, all that kind of stuff. We just like play music. Did I miss anything?
Sounds like everything.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks.